Good morning, everyone, and I would like to thank you for taking the time to join us today for our live webcast in partnership with Microsoft. The focus for our event today is on test automation using Coded UI, Visual Studio Coded UI. We will present some of the key features of Coded UI, including data driving, record and run Coded UI test, and more. I am proud to be joined today by my colleague Peter Mannering, one of our key Visual Studio consultants for TestHouse. As you can see from your screen, I'll quickly go through the agenda. So introduction will be an introduction of TestHouse, and Peter will obviously present an overview of Visual Studio, create a basic Coded UI test, data driving using action recordings, and also a few demos within those slides. And towards the end, we will do a few minutes of Q&A session. Before I pass you over to my colleague Peter, please feel free to type in all your questions on your Q&A pod now or during the presentation. We will aim to answer all or most of your questions if time permits. A full screen option is also available at the top of your screen. If you need this, maybe it might be useful when Peter will do his demo. So without further delay, I now pass you over to my colleague Peter, who will present a brief overview of TestHouse. Peter?
Well, thank you, Mel. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. As Mel has said, my name is Peter Mannering. I'm a Visual Studio consultant here at TestHouse. And I'm going to give you a quick overview of Coded UI, testing with Coded UI today. Just some very quick facts about who we are so far. The company was founded in 2000. We've got headquarters in London, but we have also regional offices around the world, in India and United Arab Emirates. Also have other presences in the Middle East, and we have over 200 consultants working around either associates or employees. So whatever your testing needs, we should be able to find some expertise that can help you in whatever you're looking for. We're also a Visual Studio Go partner with Microsoft, so we have some good resources and a good partnership with Microsoft. And here is just a quick list of some of our current and previous clients. As you can see, quite varied list of clients we've done various work for in the testing sphere and also in project management with the Microsoft tools. So that's enough about TestHouse. Let's jump straight in and start talking about Coded UI. Coded UI as a subject can get quite complicated if you get into it and you want to use it as a serious testing tool. It's very customizable. As the name suggests, it's coded, so therefore if you can write code, you can get it to do a lot of things that are not out of the box. You can just write code to do pretty much what you want. But we haven't got any time to delve into that. I've only got time today to show you the very basics of how to set up a Coded UI, what it looks like, and some of its capabilities. Before I jump into the Coded UI, I just want to give you a quick overview of Visual Studio and where it fits in and how it can help you with your entire development projects. At the heart of Visual Studio, you've got your Team Foundation server. As you can see along the outside here, you've got all of the things that you might expect to see in a tool that can help you out throughout your whole life cycle. You've got very good project management tools. Everybody has their own work items, so they update their work items so you can see exactly what's going on in the project at any one time. It's quite good at analytics as well and reporting features, so you can get all that good information out in good reports. It's got a very advanced and mature version control system. Okay, and a lot of some people that I've seen use it mainly for that, but it's capable of so much more. You can customize the processes. You've got a very good build automation, so you can do build and then testing on the back of a build. You can do automatic builds overnight, for example. If you're into using lab management and virtualization, there are good tools for that as well. So, and also with the new tool that Microsoft has recently put out, you can actually deploy your software as well. So you can test it and deploy it all in one automatic hit after a build, for example. So it's very, very powerful. And you can integrate it with a lot of outside software, SQL. You can do some good work in the cloud through Windows. And if you want to look at your projects through project server, you can do so. And there's lots of other access points as well. Web access, that's very powerful and becoming more so. So people just need a browser to look at the information. SharePoint for all those good dashboards and reports. So that's just a very quick introduction to the whole of the Visual Studio world and how it can help you throughout your entire life cycle. So just a quick note on what you actually need to run Coded UI. You actually need Ultimate or Premium. Okay, so just a note to that. It's quite an advanced feature, so you will need an Ultimate or a Premium license to access Visual Studio Coded UI. So let's talk about creating a basic Coded UI test. Okay. Now, just in case you're not aware of what a Coded UI test actually is, I'll just give a very brief description of what it actually is. It allows you to record some user interaction on the screen. Okay. So when you just turn on the recording, you use your you go through a test as you normally would do against the application you're trying to test. And in the background, all of those interactions are being recorded and put into what's called a UI map, okay, which is a Microsoft's way of recording all of your actions. And then you can, if you want to, you can customize that recording and make it do different things and different clever things. And I'll be showing you one technique of an example of how you could do that later on with data driving. And you can play back that recording at any time, and you can build in what's called assertions into that, so that the system will actually be able to look at the screen and know if it's correct or incorrect, and come out with an answer, pass or fail at the end. It's very powerful, and you can, if you get into it and you know how to do a bit of programming, then you can make it do some very good things. So some instructions of how to actually go about setting this up. It's just an ordinary project within Visual Studio, so you have to go File, New Project. The project can sit in the same solution as your development code, so you can keep them together. So that's very good for organisation, so you can see the tests alongside your code. You have to select Coded UI Test Project. And you've got some selections you can of what language you want to do it in, because I say there's some programming involved. So you can do it in Visual C#, and that's what we'll be looking at today. But you also have Visual Basic as well, and some others that you have a choice as a programming language. Now this screen here refers to something I'll be showing you a bit later on as well. As well as making a recording from scratch, you can also take advantage of some action recordings you may have done previously using Microsoft Test Manager, because that's a manual testing tool, which also plugs into Visual Studio and is very good for organising manual tests and executing those tests and getting results. And you can do some automation from that tool. And what you can do is you can take some of the automation you've done there and use that as a starting point on your coding UI test. So you can reuse that automation you've already done. So this gives you the option to do that. And once you've set up such a project within Visual Studio, then it's quite a simple quite a simple task to record a simple coded UI. You have this control with just a few buttons on. This button here starts the recording and ends the recording, because it's good to split up your recording into different blocks, because that allows you to customize it easier later on by inserting code in between those blocks. Okay, so that's one thing to bear in mind, what customization you may want to do in the future. This button will allow you to actually view the steps that you've recorded. You don't want any spurious steps in there to muck things up. This is called the crosshair tool, and that's how you build in your assertions. What actually will be tested on the screen. You can drag and drop that, and you can look at one particular point of the screen, and then you can use that to actually say whether a test has passed or failed, and you'll be seeing that in the demonstration in a few minutes. And this button here actually goes ahead and creates the bit of code that you've recorded up to that point and puts it into one method. okay? And then, as you'll see in the demonstration, there's a call to that method, and then it goes on to the next method, so you can do some programming in between those calls. So you have control over how the code is organized at this point, and then you can go in and you can do some further modifications later on and make it as complicated as you like. So here's an example of the crosshair tool in action. So you can drag that over this button, and then you can add that to the actual the screen elements that are actually included in the test. And also you can build in what's an assertion on that button. You can see, is it visible? Is it in the right place? Is it the right color? That kind of thing. Has a certain bit of text appeared on that button, because that's the kind of test you're doing. And then you can just go ahead and build your assertion, and as you'll see here, there's lots of different options you have to build your assertion. As every element on the screen has lots of different attributes, and you can choose which attribute you want to use to build your assertion on. Okay, and then you can have is one thing equal to another thing. The obvious thing is the contents of a text box equal to a certain value which you provide under certain circumstances. That's sort of simple testing you can do. Okay, so we have a number of demonstrations to show to you, and the first one is a video of how to actually go and set up a basic coded UI from scratch. So if we could have the first demonstration, please.
So now I'm going to demonstrate how to create a simple coded UI test in Visual Studio. I've already attached to a solution, demo solution. So in order to create a project which is going to hold our coded UI test, I have to go File, New, Project. And you see it's C# and Test and coded UI test project. I'm going to call it coded UI test demo. Okay, I'm going to put it into the current solution and say OK. Here we have the window that allows us to create our recording from scratch or use an existing action recording, so we're going to make one from scratch. And up comes the coded UI test builder, which we can move. That has the controls which allows us to actually do a coded UI test recording. So the first thing I want to do is open up the calculator. That's what I'm going to use to do my test. So we start some recording. Launch the calculator. And that's all I actually want to do for the first step. Now, so I pause the recording there. Now we can look at the steps that have been recorded, and it says launch the calculator, so that looks fine. And I'm going to make a method just out of that one piece of recording, and I'm going to call it open app, and here we can give it a description. That will go as a comment in the actual code when the system generates it for us, and we add and generate the code there. Okay, now I just want to do some mathematics, so I'll start another piece of recording, make sure that the calculator has focus, and now I just need to type in a number, let's say 7, and that's all I want to do for that particular piece of recording as well. You can look at the steps that we've made in this recording, and I'm going to make a method out of that. Call it left number because it's going to be the left hand side number in the equation we're going to do. I won't do a method description at this time for all of them. Okay. The piece of recording, make sure the calculator has focus. At this time I'm going just to press the add button and pause it. You can see how we make up our recordings. It's just a series of methods which houses these little bits of recording. And you'll see why it's a good idea to not put too much recording into one particular method and split it up. Another bit of recording. Call this right number, and generate that to the code. And finally have the equals button, which actually gives us the result. I'll call that equals. Okay. Now we need to do something else here to actually make this test do something useful. We have to actually make sure that the correct answer appears in the calculator. So to do what we call an assertion, we use this control, which we can drag and drop, and you can see it highlights different parts of the interface as I drag it around. But we're obviously interested in the window here which contains the answer, so I'll just release the control, and straight away we get a list of all the attributes of that particular text control. But what we're interested in, of course, is the display text, which contains the answer. So that's going to be the focus of our test. So as soon as I highlight that, I said add assertion, and then you get lots of different options on here. So it says here are equal or are not equal, or if it's a bit of text you can say contains. You can put a value in here if you like, but it's got 8 already, so I can change that. I'll take the value which is already there. I can put in a message which is reported if the test fails. Okay, that gives you a bit of a hint of what's gone wrong. So we can just say OK to that, and then hit this button again to add the method into our coded UI test. I'm going to leave it as assert method 1, but I could change that to another meaningful name. And if you have obviously a lot of assert methods, that makes sense. Okay, one more thing I want to do. So I want to resume recording, and I'm going to close down the application. Pause, check that we've got the right thing, hit the close button, and then I'll just say close app as the name of our method. And that's all recording for the test, so I just close down the test builder, and Visual Studio comes back, and here you see within coded UI test 1, which I'll just make sure I save. You can see here within the test method, public void method, we have the entry points to all the methods that we recorded during that session. So we have the open app, the left number, the add numbers, right number. Now you can see if that test actually works straight away by right clicking it and run tests. And we should see the calculator spring up, do a calculation, and then go away by itself. And it has done. And you see the test passed. So the test was successful, it ran successfully, and that's how to record a simple coded UI test.
Well, so that was how to set up a very simple coded UI test, and I think you can see that at that level it really is quite straightforward. But I'll just reiterate that there's a lot you can do, which I haven't got time to go into now, to make your tests more powerful. As you can just start coding on that in that screen that you saw at the end of that demonstration, and if you can write it in C# language, then the system will do that for you. So that test is quite powerful as far as it goes. I mean, you can that's very good for regression kind of tests. Once you have a good test in place and you're sure that it really does adding some value into your development, then you can go ahead and make a coded UI test of it, and you can have it there, and you can rerun it very quickly whenever you need to. But it is only useful up to a point, because it's only one example of the test that you want to run. Maybe you've got an application which has lots of different kinds of inputs and outputs that it can give you, but all based on the same kind of test. For example, in that situation, you could put in lots of different kinds of sums, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and maybe that the application should act differently if it goes over some sort of boundary conditions, boundary testing. So there's a technique you can use to make these tests more powerful called data driving. So I'll just talk about that as our next subject. So it's really iterating over the same test that you've written, but each time you plug in different numbers from a data source. That's both inputs and outputs, so the system knows what data to plug into certain elements of your interface, and also you can tell it what answers or what state your interface should be in once it's processed those inputs. And they can all be run automatically, one after another, taking data from external data source. So you can do a lot of tests very quickly and automatically, and really see that your system's working properly within that functionality. There's various options you have. You can do a sequential read of your data source, or you can pick a random sequence, which is quite useful, because sometimes if you use the same sequence of your data, it can actually hide a bug. But if you randomize the order of your data, you can shake out those bugs which may be hidden. It does involve a little bit of programming. You do have to add something to that file that you saw. You have to use what's called a data source attribute. Okay, but you can actually copy and paste some of those. So when you use them, they're not too difficult, but it just takes a bit of getting used to. Then once you've actually attached the external data source, you have to obviously get that data and plug it into the correct place within the interface, and that's what this line of code does. You can actually get the data out of a data test context and put it in, and get it out of the data row, and actually plug it into where you need it to go within your interface. And you have to. There's one thing you mustn't forget if you do this technique: you have to change your data file into a deployment item. Okay, it's an easy one to forget, but if you don't do that simple step, then it won't work properly. You have lots of choices when it comes to what data source you want to use. You can use a simple CSV file, comma separated values file, or it can read XML, or you can even take it from a database. Any common database will do. And then, of course, you can make a table of these of this data, and you can have literally thousands of iterations if that's what that's what you want to do. And of course, you can change your testing quite simply by just changing the external data source then. Okay, and you can do some quite clever things with your data driving, not simply input and output values, but you can actually drive the test itself. Because it's coded, you can have conditionals based on the data driving. So you can make your test go through different screens, okay, do different kinds of tests. You can test for negative results as well. So you can plug in values which you know should fail, and then you can check that an error message pops up, okay, things like that. Or you can quite easily do some programming so it skips some of the lines of data that you've got. So there's a lot of scope to do some very flexible things within this technique once you get to grips with it. That's one of the reasons I wanted to include it in this demonstration, because it is one of the most powerful things you can do to really make your tests more effective and really put your system to test. So I've got a demonstration of that technique as well. Okay, so if we could have the second demonstration, please.
I'm now going to show you how you can data drive the test, just to make it a lot more powerful, a lot more flexible, and have different inputs and output values. So what we need to do first of all is actually go and include a data source into our test. So we right click on the project and we say add an existing item, so it exists somewhere on the system, and we want to go to where I put the data file. Okay, so there's our data file that we need. If I just double click it, it will add it to the project. That's our data source. It's a simple CSV file that I made in Excel. Now, one trick that you must remember to do is that when it's included into your project, you have to right click it and go to properties. And it says here, copy to output directory, say copy always. If you don't do that, then things might not work properly and you'll be scratching your head wondering why. That can cause a lot of frustrating times. Okay, so there we have our data source here. As you can see, what it consists of is the top line is that the data headings. So we've got 3 rows in our table, and the rows are called num1, num2 and result, and 3 rows of data means that the test can be repeated 3 times with those inputs. So now that that has been included into the project, there are certain bits of coding that you have to do within here, within your coded UI test.cs, certain bits of coding you have to do to get that data out into the test and to do what you want to do with it. So it just so happens that I have up here some code that I need. I'll explain to you how all this code works. So up here, just before the test method, you need to include this data source. And what that does, that just tells the system where it can go and get some data. So there's a testdata.csv file, the testdata.csv file, and it's just saying that it has to be a sequential method of access, but it still says that this is the test method that's coming up here. Okay, so that just brings in the data into the test. But there's other things you need to put down here, which you also have copied here. So what this is doing, this is actually getting out of the test context, the data row num1. If you remember, num1 was one of the names of the columns, so it's going to take the first row and the first column num1, and it's going to put that number into the input of the first of this method here, which means instead of having a hard-coded number that was put into there during the recording of the test, it's going to replace that with the number that has come from the data table. We need to do a similar thing to the other number within the calculation. Exactly the same idea. It's going into the right number param, so it's going to replace the hard-coded number that was recorded, but this time it's going to be num2. So we've had num1 and num2 as the inputs, and so we need to deal, of course, with the output. So that's one more line to do that. And just goes above the assertion. So the expected value for the assertion method is now, instead of the hard-coded value, is going to be the result from the data row. So num1, num2 result. So make sure we can save that, and we can see that running and see how that goes. Now to run this test now, I've got it in the Test Explorer. I can just right click on the test, and I can say run selected tests, and then we should see the data calculator jump up and do more than one calculation, do 3 calculations in fact. There it goes. This is all being driven by the test, taking data from the CSV file. And it's failed. Now when you get a failure, you can see down here it tells you exactly why it failed. So it expected the number 45, because that's what was in the test data source, but it actually got the answer 46. And if you remember when we did the recording, I said put that bit of text in if we get the assertion fail. Well, I must admit that I did this on purpose just to show you how easy it is to change the data once you have it in the test. So say 26 plus 20 is not 45, it is indeed 46. So you can change that and Control S to save it. Now if I go back here, right click that, run the selected test again. Now it should have the correct answer within the data, so we should have a completely successful test run. And there it is. All the test rows have passed, and we have an overall pass as well because everything passed. And all the data came from the data table and was plugged into the expected results instead of the hard-coded. So that's data driving within a simple data driving within a coded UI test.
Okay, so that's data driving, a very useful technique, very powerful. Once you get used to those little bit of coding you have to do, then you can really plug in some data to drive your applications to really see whether they're working or not under different conditions. Okay, one more item I want to talk about is using action recordings. One reason I'm going to talk about this as well as to show you how easy it is to use some previous work that you've done and reuse it again, is to show you how easy it is to actually update a coded UI test once you have it actually recorded. Because one thing you have to bear in mind with an action recording, if you know about MTM, Microsoft Test Manager, is that you can record those manual tests, but there's no assertions built into those recordings. So in other words, it will actually do the actions on the screen for you, but it won't look at at your application and say that's the right number in that box, for example. So those things still have to be checked manually on using MTM with an action recording. But if you take that action recording and turn it into a coded UI, then you have to build in an assertion to do that checking for you. So this is an opportunity to show you how you can update a coded UI once it's actually been recorded. So if you know about MTM, you know you based on actions from your test cases. And if you do build in any iterations into your test cases in MTM, they actually are retained, and the system will go into MTM to look at the data for those interactions and those iterations. But I do suggest if you do that, then you actually get rid of the data within MTM and have a brand new external data source. That makes it a lot easy to maintain, and you can have much more big volume of data as well. Okay, and as you'll see, each step within your test case within MTM will be transferred into one method call within the coded UI test. Okay, so that's the way it organizes itself. To give you a good starting point in any modifications that you might want to do on the coded UI. Okay, so can we have the last demonstration, please?
I'm now going to show you how you can make a coded UI test out of a previously recorded action recording from Microsoft Test Manager. So to do that, I need to do the same kind of procedure as I did when I was going to make one from scratch. That is, I need to have a new project. The same again, test coded UI. And I'm going to again put it in the same solution as I'm using now and call it test project a C for action recording and create the coded UI. This is where you make the change. Instead of selecting record actions from scratch, use an existing action recording and say OK. then you have this window which allows you to pick which test case you want to take the action recording from. Now, I did one previously called add numbers case. You can select it in several ways. Here I have a query that I made in TFS which returns the cases in the project, but if I knew the ID, the 287, I could just put it in here, or I could do a search on the title contents of the work item. But I'm happy with that, and because there's no symbol there, no stop symbol, that means that there's an action recording associated with this case, so I can go ahead and I can use this as a starting point. So as you can see, it's got 3 steps it's made for us. And if I open up MTM, you can take a look. You can see that there are actually 3 steps within the test case. There are 3 steps: open app 7+1 close app, open app 7+1 close app. So it takes makes a method out of each of the steps within the MTM case. So let's see if we can run this. It's using the action recording. Okay. So it's done that and it's passed it. But actually, as you can see here, there are no assertions, because it can't build assertions into the coded UI because there are no assertions within MTM. So what you have to do, you have to build your own assertion into the test. That's very easy. All you have to do is put a space in where you want the assertion to go, in this case just after the calculation. Then you can right click there and you can say generate code for coded UI. Now again, you have a choice. Do you want to use the test builder or use another action recording? I'm going to use the test builder. So the test builder pops up. Okay, so I need the calculator or the application that I'm testing, and I need to put an assertion in here, and we do that of course using the crosshair tool. Drag and drop, drag it over the control we're interested in, and here we have the same as before. You can see it's got all of the attributes of that particular text box. We're after display text and add an assertion based on that, and we know that the answer should be 8, so you can put 8 in there. And so, a message if it should fail. Okay. So now you just hit that button and we have another assertion method, which we could change if we wanted to, but we'll just add and generate. And that's all I want to do, so I can close everything down now, close down the builder. And you can see here I have an assert method 1 put into the coded UI at the right place. So now I have actually a test against that, so now let's run this again and see if it works. And you see the solid green line means that it's finished, and this time it has finished and it's all correct, but this time there is a check in place to make sure that the correct mathematics has come out of the calculator and that the application is actually functioning properly. So that's how to create a simple coded UI test out of a MTM action recording. Once you've made a coded UI test out of an action recording, you can go and associate the coded UI test back to the test case within Microsoft Test Manager. I'll show you how to do that, but before I do, I'll just show you a quick trick. You see over here you've got your Test Explorer, and when you have a few tests going, they're all going to have the same name, so it can get a bit confusing about what test you're actually looking at. So to change the name in the Test Explorer, this is the bit you have to change. So you change the coded test AC, for example, okay, so now if I run this test again, if I right click, run tests, it's been successful because everything's here, but here you can see it's got the name here that I placed here, so you can easily identify what test you're looking at in the Test Explorer by changing this name here. So how do you go about associating this coded UI back to the test case within MTM, Microsoft Test Manager? Well, if I go here to my Team Explorer and look in my work items, I can see I've got my test cases query already set up, so I can open that. And this is the test case from MTM where I made the action recording from. I took it from to create a coded UI test. So if I open that, you see here associated automation, that tab. If I then click this ellipse button, I can now look at all the coded UI tests which are in the solution which I have open, and this is the one I'm interested in, the one we made from this particular action recording. If I just say OK to that, then all the details of this coded UI are now associated back to this test case. So if I save that and close that down, go back into here within MTM, if I do a refresh to make sure, come in here and you can see all the details of the coded UI test are now stored within the test case within MTM. Okay, so that's how to deal with test cases and make coded UI tests out of the action recordings.
Well, so that's how you can sort of marry up your coded UI with MTM testing as well to make those two tools work together. And one of the great strengths of all these tools provided by Microsoft is the fact that you can get people to work together very effectively as a team. For example, you can write bug reports, and those bug reports are stored centrally. Anybody can then look at them, work on them. It's very easy then to look at the state of them. They can be passed back and then verified very easily by the testing team. Requirements can be put into the system, linked together with tasks and programming and testing, so people can see exactly what needs to be done, what has been done. So you can track your project very carefully throughout the whole life cycle of the project. So using these tools together really makes things even more powerful. So that concludes the demonstration I have to you today. Just to mention that Test House does have some training, as well as doing consultancy work. We also do training in the coded UI and all forms of testing and project management within Scrum as well. So if you're interested in any of that, you can get in contact with us. You can also find us on social media. We've got some LinkedIn accounts. We have a Twitter as well, and we also have some videos on YouTube. So search for us on YouTube and you can see some interesting videos on coded UI or MTM or various other testing elements within Microsoft. Okay, so that's it from me. We have some Q&A now, so I'm going to hand back to Mel, who will sign off for us.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thanks for that valuable presentation today. As Peter said, we are now taking questions. So if you have any questions at all with regards to the presentation that Peter has just presented to everyone, please do type in on your Q&A pod. We will take a few questions, and if time permits, then we will maybe try and take some of this offline. As I said, Peter's contact details are on your screen right now, so if you do have any questions for later, that's fine. We can take them offline. So please, again, as I said, please do type your questions on the Q&A pod. So we're starting to get some questions. Okay, I'll just ask one or two questions for Peter. First question: can coded UI be used for any user interface? Peter?
Well, as long as you, as the application is written in Microsoft technology, .NET, for example, then there shouldn't be an issue, because behind the scenes, coded UI plugs into to a system that Microsoft uses within its interfaces to help drive the interface automatically by other means, apart from a keyboard and a mouse, for example. So, for example, if people use their own custom controls, develop their own custom controls, then and it doesn't include those features, then coded UI will have some problems in actually driving the screen. But as long as you use standard elements on standard interfaces, it shouldn't be a problem. But you should always do a proof of concept project before you start to use it in earnest, just to make sure that there's no issues on your particular interface with this technology.
Thank you very much, Peter. I've got a few more questions here. Second question: can you give us any guidance on how to decide what test to automate with coded UI? Peter?
Well, as I think I mentioned in my presentation, it's very good for testing in regression. So if you have some tests that you know are very useful for your application, and you find them using them again and again every time there's a new bit of development, then you can just reuse them and save time by turning them into coded UIs. Now you have to make sure that your system is quite stable before you do automations like this. The technology can tolerate small changes to the interface, small redesigns, things moving on the screen, because it doesn't do it simply by location. It does it by looking inside the interface to find out what elements are where. So it doesn't do it purely by position. So it will tolerate some redesign. But if you completely change the order of your screen, for example, then of course you'd have to do a re-recording. So just make sure that the system is fairly stable before you invest the time and effort in actually producing these coded UI tests.
Thank you, Peter. A few more questions for you. So I'll just ask a third question. Can a coded UI test be started automatically?
Yes, and this is quite a powerful idea as well. You don't, as in the demonstrations, obviously you saw someone start the test automatically, which of course is useful just to see that it works properly and to run the tests on an ad hoc basis. But you can run them together off the back of a build, for example. So if you do an overnight build, you can set the system up so that it does the build and then automatically does these tests afterwards. So you can come in the morning and you can see how the build is done, if the build is actually broken any of your important tests. So yes, there's a lot you can do within Visual Studio to automate all of these processes. Okay,
we'll just ask the very last question for today. Fourth question: who in the organization should be responsible for developing the coded UI test?
That's an interesting question, because although it seems like it sits squarely inside the testers area, because obviously it's a test, it does get quite technical. So if you want to do anything more than just the simple record, playback, add a few simple assertions, it can get quite technical if you want to do some more clever things with it. So it is for maybe for the testers to get the ideas, but then maybe they will need some help from the developers to actually, at least to start with, to actually implement these tests if you want to do anything more advanced with them, at least until the testers become competent in programming as well. It all depends on what competence, what kind of skill set your testers have. But that's something that is kind of a decision for each individual organization, I think.
Thank you very much, Peter. I think that wraps up our Q&A session for today. The recording will be available within the next few days. Once again, before we go, if you do have any additional technical questions for Peter, please do email him offline. His email address is on your screen right now. Just a few things I wanted to ask you, we would want to say as well, is apart from consultancy, testing consultancy and Visual Studio training that we offer, TestTask also provides a range of cost-effective test process reviews for your Q&A and testing maturity. We are also offering a few of our customers a free proof of concept for those interested to evaluate the tool. So for more information of the free proof of concept, please do email our dedicated Visual Studio team, which is on your screen right now. So once again, thank you very much for joining us this morning, and hope to see you all once again at our next webinar. Thank you very much, and have a great day.